Hey, hello guys. Welcome to a World of Unknown solo episode. Yes, it's just me, Danny. I'm here to bring you a kind of a quick story we have on some, let's kind of do like a creepypasta, urban legends kind of story. This is the Black-Eyed Kids story. Now, if you guys don't know who the Black-Eyed Kids are, again, I mentioned they were a creepypasta, urban legend kind of story that started off not too long ago. And what I want to do is I want to jump into the very story that kind of sparked off this whole Black-Eyed Kids phenomenon. So Black-Eyed Kids, if you don't know what they are, they're basically like beings, kids that are ranged from like early, like around about 5 or 6 up to about mid-teenage years that are very pale, always covered up, very pale, have total black eyes. You know, I'm not talking about no whites or nothing. It's just a big black pool of eyes. Although you don't see that right away, and they're always approaching people's car. And this at nighttime, they approach people's cars or houses, and they're asking to be let in. They're not very violent or forceful, but they're asking for permission to come in for what means you don't know. The way they dress is kind of odd, formal, doesn't match what they're going on. It could be like a cold winter night and they're wearing something very light, or it could be very a hot night and they're wearing like heavy, jackets or hoodies and stuff like that. Again, usually hoodies because they try to keep their eyes hidden until a certain time, and you always have a feel of dread, a sickness to your stomach. The people who have encountered these beings, kids we're talking about. And again, we're going to go into the first story that really kicked off this whole Black-Eyed Kids phenomenon. Before we jump into the story, I want to talk a little bit about the person who originally brought this story up. And this gentleman's name is Brian Bethel. I'll kind of put his name, and there's even photos of him now or whatever of what he is now. He was actually, and this happened in Abilene, Texas, in around about 1996. So Brian Bethel is a journalist back in Abilene, Texas. He had got that job back in like 1995. He was a reporter. He would do stories like community events, kind of opinion stuff, I don't know, anything with the community and city council kind of stuff. So no paranormal stuff. He didn't do any kind of stories like that. There was no stuff I could find online that him doing any kind of fake story stuff. It was all like real reporting and journalistic kind of stuff that he would do. So, him putting this story out, actually this thing happened to him, kind of sparked, especially the people that knew him, like, whoa, did this really happen? So let's get into it, okay? Let's get into the story that kicked off the phenomena of Black-Eyed Kids. So again, this happened in 1996 in Abilene, Texas. This is around about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. It was like an early spring, summer that Brian Bethel was out and about, and he was actually parked into this parking lot to pay his internet bill at night. As you can tell, anybody running my check, that's how long ago it was. You have to go pay to a physical place to pay an internet bill. And while he was doing this, obviously it was dark, so he had pulled in front of this marquee lights of this theater, outside a theater, so he can finish writing out the check. I guess he was going to put it in the mail slot, whatever it was, at the Billy's shopping center. And it was in front of him, the marquee of the theaters, because the bright lights, like the old movie theaters, they have those bright lights, and you would see the times and stuff like that. That's how you go up there. And before there was, internet stuff to really look on, you'd have to go to the newspaper or call them or whatever. You drive by, and they'll tell you all the times on there, the old school one. I'll see if I can put some on there for you guys. But as he's writing this, he suddenly gets a little, or a knock on his window. So he kind of gets startled because something something snuck up on him, and he looked over, and it's 2 young kids. He's saying their range about 12, 13, 14 years old. One of them seemed a little younger than the other, but the one that was a little older, he guessed around about 14, was the one that started talking. Again, right away, he looked at these kids, couldn't see their face, hair was covered. He actually had one of the kids, he said kind of like olive skin, the one talking, the other one's more pale, kind of reddish hair, and so you just tell, he can't see their face that's covered, it's dark, just in the hair peeking out. So after he knocked on the window, Brian Bethel wrote on the window, was like, yeah. So he said when these kids, first of all, you could see there was kind of off about them. First of all, they have hoodies on. He goes, it was kind of a warm night, kind of not a hoodie. He described it as kind of like a heavier kind of hoodie thing. That's something you wouldn't be wearing that nighttime. Whatever, kids wear weird stuff sometimes. And the way they seemed to him was a little off. Their clothing didn't really match what again, as it was what they're doing. Their tone of the older kid's voice was a little off. Is a little really formal, really not demanding, but as a matter of fact, kind of talking something a kid wouldn't talk with. You think about a young kid, you think they're kind of a little nervous, or just the way kids talk sometimes. So he kind of described as it right off the bat. He's been like, well, this is a little odd, but the older boy kind of told him, it's like, hey, we forgot our money at home. We wanted to see the movie Mortal Kombat. So would you able to drive us home so we can go get our money so we can come back and watch the movie? So Brian Bethel kind of looked around, and he had seen the marquee, and he noticed the movie that they were talking about, because it was almost the last movie at night. It had already started. He said it was around 9:30, so I think it was like a 9 o'clock showing. So he was kind of like, if I take you guys, you're going to miss the movie anyways. The movie's already started. It's like half an hour in. And the kid just kept saying, it won't take long. We're just kids. We don't have a gun or anything. So when kid said that, it kind of struck him really how strange this was, and inappropriate that the way he kid had just said it to him. It's like, what? And the way he said it too, it was like, we don't have a gun or anything. So like, it's okay. We don't have a gun or anything, And at this time, he began to get like a really deep, terrorizing fear. It really began to seep in. The strangeness of what these kids, how they looked, the way they were acting. He started getting a sick feeling to the pit of his stomach, and he started getting a little, kind of disorientated. I guess he kind of looked away a little bit, maybe thinking, and he looked back as when he noticed the kids' eyes are just completely black. And there's no whites, no irises, just everything is just black, liquid obsidian. He had described it. So as he's looking at these kids' eyes, probably in shock, he kind of realized that his hand was going towards the door to open it for them, like a compulsion. And so he took it back, noticing like he kind of snapped out of like, what the hell am I doing? Like, why was I going to open the door for these kids or these things? He started to roll up the window really fast because obviously he got freaked out. And the older kid starts banging on the window, and he just said, "We can't come in unless you tell us it's okay. Let us in." Obviously, he starts the car, takes off, gets out of there. The kids are still kind of yelling at him, and he sped away. As he's speeding outside the parking lot, he looked in the rearview mirror, and the kids were gone. They weren't there anymore. The story, again, had stuck with him, especially the whole thing about we can't come in unless you tell us we can come in, unless we're invited. You think of old stuff, like especially the old vampire movies or any kind of old folklore or mythological entities can't come in unless you allow them permission to come in. And that struck a chord to him, thinking about it back afterwards. When he, later on, he stuck with him here, and I'm sure he told the story to other people and stuff. And around about 1988, he was on what they have a ghost themed mailing list that he posted a story on. It's kind of like forums, stuff like that. So I couldn't get the name of exactly what the ghost mailing list was, or if I did, I don't remember what it is more. But he put in a story on there, and that kind of took off from there. That kind of sparked and trended at the time of this story that he had out. Especially people that knew him. People in that area, they'd never heard of this stuff. They've never heard of this, or some people had, and the ones who had sparked other stories. So basically, his story kicked off the whole trend of black-eyed kids. So other people who have never heard of this freaked out. Other people who have already dealt with some of this stuff might come up with some other episodes of different stories later, started telling their side and their sightings of the black-eyed kids. So again, that was his story. He wasn't trying to go viral at the time. He didn't even know what that was. Right? And he didn't really do stories like that beforehand. He was all about, communities and council meetings and stuff like that. Again, there was no trace of any kind of stories he would put out like that, or if he was even into that kind of thing. He just kind of just wrote down what he went through. And I'm sure, again, he's on a ghost themed mail list, but I guess he was on there because of what happened to him. I'm sure, being a journalist, he wanted to look into what it was. And I don't know what he totally dove into. I didn't get into that much of it. But after that, people started coming forward again with their own encounters. All these stories kind of sound similar. The kids are always about the same type of thing that he saw. They're always doing the same thing. They're always odd. They're always asking to be let in. It grew as one of the original creepypasta ones that kind of kicked off the whole spooky stories. So is it true or is it not? I don't know. It's how you look at it. There's a tons of stories that come out again from his. I would say most of them are false. Every once in a while, you read a story, or you might have had something in your encounter of your own, maybe an experience of your own that you thought was kind of odd, and it strikes a chord in you. So, what do you think? Me, they're great stories, regardless if it's true or not. Maybe he did see something, maybe he didn't. Okay, maybe he did it just because he's a journalist and he decided to just branch out. Maybe it did happen to him. He was really trying to tell the story. Never gonna know. Again, I've had experiences about different things, not black-eyed kids. So it's hard for me to totally say that he's bullshit. Then again, it's hard for me knowing the internet saying that it's definitely true. So guys, that was Black-Eyed Kids. That's the Brian Bethel story that kicked off the whole thing. Hope you guys enjoyed this really quick solo episode. We'll be coming out. I'll be coming out with more possibly. So keep your eye out for that. And thank you guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and please share the show. So we'll see you guys next time. Bye. Boop.